Hi, Sinead, and welcome to the Natural Birth podcast. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure to have you on. Today, we're going to dive on into your natural and empowering home birth. But before we do you want to share with us, becoming pregnant, and did you know from the get-go that home birth was where you wanted to go? Is that something that your family, is doing, or are you the first person in the maybe, your mother, your grandmother's lineage, or yeah, tell us a little.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely the first person. I mean, who knows like further back in the lineage, but I'm the first person in the family, but I always knew I wanted a home birth. It was really important to me that I was giving birth in a place where I felt safe and I felt comfortable to let go and to be who I needed to be in every moment within the birth. And I just through previous experiences in my life, hospital wasn't that place. I didn't feel safe in a hospital. So I think it's one of those things you never really hear much about home birth or free birth or anything like that. You're always just told the normal, place. You go to your GP, you go to the hospital, and it's just like that. So it wasn't something I'd always known in my life. But the more I started to hear about people having home births and moving along this path, it was a no-brainer for me. I was like, yep, that's where my son needs to be born.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. And talking about lineages, like literally, it's just really two generations for most. If before that, everyone was born at home. Like it's
Yes.
only been around. I mean, birthing in hospital really just maybe 100 years. Like
Yeah. Yeah, I
maybe
was
that.
reading an amazing book explaining all of that. And that was really great too, just reaffirming for me, not that I'd made the right choice, but yeah, this feels good. This feels like aligned with my choices and how I want to birth and bring in my child into the world.
Yeah, beautiful. So, was your pregnancy plan? Did you like call in your baby or?
I did, yeah. It's been I think it's one of those things where people view birth and being pregnant as, the preps in a couple of months before, or you start eating good or something like that. But I'd connected with the spirit of my baby a good 2 years before. And we'd had a lot of back and forth, and I think there was a lot of impatience on my behalf. But looking back now, I realize the person I needed to become in order to be the mother that I am today, and trusting in that journey. And so I feel like he was putting me through a lot of trials in the process leading up to conception. And me and my partner were in Bali on holiday, and I just had such a strong voice come through. And for so long, he would say, "Not yet, Mama, not yet, not yet. Just keep living life. Just keep doing what you're doing." And there was a day in Bali, and I remember just sitting out looking at the rice fields. My partner was asleep, and I just had this voice that dropped in and said, "It's time now. We're ready. It's time." And my heart just, I was scared. Like, I think the first thing was fear because I thought, oh my goodness, it's like now's the time. Like, he's ready. I'm ready. He thinks I'm ready now. And I knew it was a boy from, yeah, a couple of years before as well. So it was just this beautiful aligning that happened. I think I finally just matched his frequency and vice versa. And the stars, as we say, aligned in the most perfect way.
Beautiful. I love that. Talking about Bali just makes me think because I literally just booked tickets to Bali a couple of days ago for
Oh,
February. Yay.
so jealous. I
So
love Bali. It's such a special place. Have you been before?
I haven't. So of
Oh, it's
course, like
magical.
having lived in Australia, like everyone has been to Bali. Yeah,
Yeah,
I haven't.
it's the most
Yeah.
magical place. It's a really
Yeah.
beautiful frequency there. Yeah, I'm not shocked that my son came through during that time because yeah,
Oh
it's a
yeah.
very heart-opening energy that's there. So yeah, you'll love
Yeah.
it.
I'll have to pick your brain about where to go. And
Got all the
I
good
have
spots.
to rewatch Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah, I literally
Right.
watched that yesterday, actually. So you're talking about Bali. I'm like, oh my God, I miss it even more because I watched it yesterday. I love
Oh,
that movie.
yeah, that's so cute. Okay, so did you actually conceive in Bali as well?
Yeah, so we did, and it was, yeah, it was a conversation that I'd had with my partner time and time again, and he'd say, not yet, not yet. But like I say, the energy in Bali's really, it's very open, it's very heart opening, and everything in Bali seems possible. So it's the energy of just everything will work out. We just trust and everything will be fine. And so when we'd had these conversations at home, it was always like, oh no, not the time, maybe work or money or whatever the situation was, and it just never felt right. But in Bali, and when I brought it up to my partner, he was like, yeah, this seems right. And I was like, oh my goodness, he's actually agreeing, you know. I was like, I didn't expect that. I expected a bit more of a push. Um, but it was just perfect. He felt open, he felt ready to receive. I felt open, I felt ready to receive. And so it was a first time conception, which was, yeah, really special.
In the rice fields in Bali.
In a rice field in Bali. Oh, magical.
I love that.
What a romantic story I make it sound like.
Yeah. And so, was your partner on board as well with the home birth? Was that something that was obvious for him as well?
Yeah, I think that he had trust in me. And, you know, there was always the conversation like, I'm the one that's giving birth. So it's important that I feel safe. It's important that it's in a place where I feel held and I feel like I'm going to be supported in the way that I need. And so there wasn't really much of a conversation surrounding that.
Hmm.
I think it was hard because, like I said, you're not really told when you go to a GP and you say, okay, I'm pregnant, what do I do? You're not given the option of home birth. You're given this hospital, this hospital, this hospital. And so I think that there was just a lot more researching and work to be done on our behalf of, okay, what are our options? Where do we go from here? If we're not doing it via the system, then, or, internally like that, then how do we actually go about it? Because there really isn't much out there for women. So that took a bit of navigating. But apart from that, he was actually really on board. He just said, as long as I don't have to deliver the baby, it's okay. And I'm like, you won't be the midwife, don't worry.
Oh, gorgeous. That's beautiful. All right. So, did you go about finding your midwife early or later? And did you go with independent
Yeah,
or?
we did.
Oh,
Yeah, we did. So after the GP and I'd kind of expressed that I wanted a home birth, she didn't really have anywhere to lead me from after that. It was just, she kind of just ignored the fact that I said that, to be honest. And so I didn't go back and see her, and didn't go back to the GP. And I just put in my research. I asked around, I asked people who I knew who had had home births and who were pregnant and researching about, who they'd heard of. And, I've been following a few pages as well over the last couple of years of home birth groups and things like that. So I had a few ideas, but I think it was around 10 weeks, I think I was. And I found a beautiful group called Mama Toto Midwives, and I got in touch with them, and I'd heard so many beautiful things about them, and I'd followed their Instagram for quite a bit. And I called them, and they said, "We've got two midwives for July, the last two midwives, so you're just in time." Because again, I didn't know how soon, you're meant to contact midwives. I didn't know if I was meant to wait until after the 12 weeks. I didn't know, like, yeah, I just had no idea. So I just called them and said, I'm only 10 weeks pregnant. I don't know if it's too soon. They said, nope, you've got in just in time. It's perfect.
yeah.
So again, it just all aligned amazingly. And I had two beautiful midwives. I was very, very lucky.
Yeah. Like when it comes to finding your home birth midwife, obviously stars can align at any time, but of course, especially groups of midwives are quite busy because
Mm,
they're just literally so few of them around, right? And
yeah,
depending on where you live. And the demand is getting bigger and bigger, which is
which
wonderful.
is
And I
great.
right. And I
Mm,
hope and it is kind of happening that it is being matched with that there's more talk like publicly about it. And hopefully
mm,
it'll be easier for more women to have home births and also
yeah.
publicly funded would be obviously
Oh,
great to have that option.
yeah.
Mm.
And I think that was one of the not a roadblock because we would do it anyway, but it's really hard because it is really expensive, you know. We didn't realize how expensive it would be to have
Right.
a private midwife, and because these options aren't really supported by governments, you're not getting government funding, you're not getting help with any of the appointments and things like that. So I see why a lot of women end up not doing that, and it's really sad, you know, when people do want home births, but then money's the factor and they can't have that.
Yeah.
Um, I also see why it's priced like, you know, it's worth it. It's not like it's not worth it. But it's hard. It makes it really hard and not as accessible for everybody, which is a shame.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So, is there something else that happened during your pregnancy that you'd like to share, or should we dive on into your birth story?
No, I mean, my pregnancy was pretty, there weren't any complications. I was pretty smooth sailing, you know, the first trimester, big sickness. I did have really bad nausea. I wasn't sick that often, but I just had nausea from morning till night, which was a really big struggle. But of course, you know, second trimester was beautiful. I had my energy back, felt good. But third trimester hit, and I was like, oh, it's getting hard. Like, I don't think I can go to 40 weeks. And I remember saying to my midwife, I'm not going to make it to 40 weeks. I think he's going to come around 38 weeks. He said, what made you think that? I'm like, I've just got a feeling. I'm like, I'm not going to make it to 40. I just know that. And he definitely did. He came at 38 plus 4.
Wow, amazing. So,
Yeah.
tell us about it. Did you have any early signs of labor approaching for you?
So the week before, or a week and a half before, I kept getting slight period pain, cramp type of feelings. And I'd messaged my midwife and she'd called to check in. And I said, oh, I'm getting a few kind of crampy feelings. Like, I think he's coming soon. And of course, I had that 38-week mark in my head. And I intuitively, I just from the beginning of my pregnancy, I'd said 38 weeks. So I didn't know it was approaching around that time. Um, so I'd felt those cramps, but you know, then it would subside and I would have nothing for a few days, and then I'd get a slight twinge again, and then it would disappear. Um, and my midwife said, just, you know, keep going as normal. Don't cling to it. Don't get, you know, excited because you might be let down if in the morning then nothing happens again. So just keep going, keep resting, you know, make sure you get a lot of rest. So that week I did. I had a lot of Netflix days and just lay on the sofa. I really, really relaxed. I let my body really slow down. Um, and I think in that final week, I could sense my inner resistance as well. There was a bit of resistance of, oh, my life's about to really change, you know, like things are about to really ramp up, and any day could be a whole new life for me. So I could feel emotionally I was really going through it and just needed to just be in that and let my emotions kind of flow through me. So that week in particular was challenging in as much as me having the inner dialogue of I know I need to let go. I know I need to surrender to his timing. It'll be perfect whenever it is. But I could tell that my resistance was impacting things. Um, so on the Saturday morning, I woke up and I just felt so different. And I thought, today might be the day. And I woke up and I had just this download that came through, and the voice was so clear. And it just said, he's waiting for you to align. And I thought, okay, I know this is my work. This is me resisting and just not letting go. So I sat in ceremony that morning, sat in front of my birth altar, and I just started crying. I could feel just like the tenseness in my body. And I just started crying and I said, Spirit, okay, I'm ready. Like I let go, and I'm going to trust in his timing. I'm going to trust that when he comes, it's going to be the most perfect time. And I drew 3 cards that morning. One was ancestors, and I have a very close connection to my ancestors, and they've been guiding me so much. So I knew I needed to sit with them too, because it had been a while of avoiding them as well, because I knew I'd get a telling off. um, so yeah, one was ancestors, one was resistance, and so that was pretty clear. And the other one was rebirth. So I knew he was coming really soon. Had a big cry, had a big release, and then that evening, I sat on the sofa and I started to feel those same cramps, but they were a bit stronger. And I said to my partner, I was like, oh, okay, you know, the tub over there, that's got this in it. Remember the birth plan of this. Remember, if we have to go to hospital, this is this. And he's like, why are you going over this? Like, we've still got another week. It's fine. I don't think he's coming anytime soon. We've got time. And I was like, I think you're in denial. I was like, I've gone through that phase. I'm not in denial anymore. I think he's coming tonight. But I was like, no, we've got another week. And so I'm sitting on the sofa, 9 p.m., sitting down thinking, I need to go to bed. I don't feel good. I need to just go sleep. So I headed to the bed, fell asleep, but I had to get up and down to the toilet so many times, more so than what I had been. I'd lie down, fix all my cushions again, think, oh my God, I've got to go again. Get up, go to the toilet, come back, and it's all the fluffing around of trying to be comfortable. And then by the time I got comfortable, I had to go back to the toilet again. So I did that so many times. I can't even count how many times I got up and down. I thought, this is ridiculous. And then I got up to go to the bathroom and I felt this little pop. But I was half asleep and I thought, is that my water's just breaking? And I thought, well, I didn't really feel much. And then I thought, I'll go back to bed and I'll Google, like, can you actually feel when your water's break and you're peeing at the same time? I don't know. Like, can you feel the difference? Um, and I get back to the bed. I sit on the bed to get my phone, and just the biggest gush of water came out. The biggest. And because my midwife had been saying, just keep an eye out. Might just be a little trickle. You might not even notice. You might just think you peed yourself by mistake. But I sat on the bed and this massive gush of water came out. And my partner's still asleep. And I'm like, okay. I rocked him. I'm like, my water's just broke. He said, are you sure? Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure the bed is soaked. I'm sure my water's just broke. And that was at 12:15. And so we both kind of were like, oh, maybe we'll just go back to sleep. We'll rest for a bit. I thought I better get some sleep in. It could take up to 24 hours for labor to kick in. Like, I'm not going to get excited. I'm just going to go to sleep. And so I'm laying in the bed and I did kind of doze off a bit, and my cat started scratching at the door. And usually I wouldn't let him into the bedroom, but I thought, oh, maybe he knows something. Like, I'll let him in. I'll bring him in. And at 1 o'clock on the dot, my first contraction came. And then I feel like I was gaslighting myself the entire labor, to be honest, because I thought, oh, but I could get contractions now and then I could, they could stop and then I'd wake up in the morning and it would all end. And then, this might be a 2-3 day thing. And that's what I'd been gearing myself for. Like most of my friends, first baby, it was 3-day labors. So in my head, in my birth prep, I was prepping for endurance. I was like, I'm going to need all the dates in the freezer. I'm going to need all the coconut water. We had so much coconut water. And I was like, 3 days, like I've really got to be able to endure this. And so I messaged my midwife and I was just like, my water's broke and contractions have started, but I'm all good. And I didn't think to call her. I thought I'll just rest a bit and see how I go. My cat was purring on my tummy. It felt really nice. It wasn't anything crazy. It was just kind of mild period pains. And then I thought, these are pretty frequent. I might start timing and seeing how frequent they are. And I'm timing them and I'm like, oh gosh, they're every 4 minutes. Like, and then I thought, 4 minutes already? Like, that can't be right. And I thought maybe they'll slow down again. Like, it'll be fine. So I'm telling my partner, and he's like, didn't the midwife say about 4 minutes? Like, that means we're ramping up. And I said, yeah, but I don't know, it might slow down. Let's just ride it out. I'll see how I go. So I'm laying in bed, still every 4 minutes on the dot, these contractions are coming, they're lasting a minute. I'm riding that wave. I'm like, I don't know, it kind of feels like period pains. Like I think I'm okay. Like maybe I've got quite a bit of time. And then around 2:30, I remember saying to him, it's getting a bit spicy. I'm think I'm gonna get up. Like I need to just move a little bit. I think I need to go to the bathroom. And I remember thinking, oh God, I need a poo. Like, I think I need to poo. And then I thought, I think I need to call the midwife. I need to call her now. Um, so I called her and I said, hey, my contractions have started. I'm all good. And she said, oh, did your waters break? And I said, yeah, my waters broke. Maybe you didn't see my message. She said, oh my gosh, I was asleep. I didn't see. Um, and I said, I'm okay though. Like, I'm just riding it. It feels okay. I said, but I do feel like I need a poo. She was like, you need to poo or push? And I said, I don't know, but I need to poo. Like I'm on the toilet because I think I need to poo. Like I'm not sure, but it's all in the back. And she said, oh, do you have your TENS machine on? And I said, well, no, because I don't really have any pain in the stomach anymore. Like that's kind of gone and it's just all at the back. She said, oh, I think I'm going to come and check. She was like, but call me in a bit of time and see how you go. She was like, just see how you go and I'll check in with you in a bit. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll just stay here and I'll write it out. So I did. I just sat on the toilet and I was sitting there and I'm like, yeah, I feel like I need to poo. I was kind of groaning through it. I said to my partner, maybe start setting up the birth pool, like just get things, get things organized. You don't necessarily need to start filling it, but let's just get stuff in place just in case. Um, my midwife called back about 30 minutes after and she said, how are you going? And she could hear me. I was in a contraction as she called. And she said, I'm just going to come down and check. She said, look, he could just be pushing on your bowels and that's what's making you feel like you need to poo. But I'm going to come and have a look and then I'll go back home and I'll sleep it off and, we'll reconvene at a later stage. So I thought, okay, cool. I'll just stay here. So she lives about 40 minutes from me. And she called me halfway-ish into her journey. So she called me about 20 minutes later. I'm still answering the phone. I'm talking to her. I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. I'd grown through a contraction while I was on the phone to her. She's like, where are you? I'm on the bathroom floor. I'm like, I can't leave the toilet because I think I need a poo. She's like, you're probably not going to poo. It's okay. I'm like, I don't want to take the risk. I'll stay by the toilet. Um, and so I'm just there. I'm groaning through the contractions. They were still pretty manageable at that stage. They didn't feel too overwhelming or too painful that I, needed my partner. He was setting up the pool. At this point, the midwife said, look, just get the water going. Just start heating up the water, start getting the pool going just in case. Even though like it could also just help just for pain relief. You might just want to sit in the pool. So I'm there, I'm laboring in the bathroom. I said to my partner, just start getting the water ready. My midwife comes in. As she's coming in, Vilda, my partner's filling up the pool, and the hot water runs out because we got a gas water system. And she did ask us before, she's like, how does your water run? So the hot water's run out. The pool was barely full at all, like minimal amounts in there. So it's not like I could have just got it in anyway. And Vilden is now heating pots and pans on the stove. He's an ex-chef, so he had a sous vide. He had put water in the sous vide. He was heating that up. And my midwife walks in and she's looking at me and I look at her and I'm like, am I in active labor? And she said, what do you think? I think I'm in active labor. And she said, yeah, we're going to get that pool ready. And I thought like it was only real in that moment because the whole time I just kept thinking, this is going to die down and I'm going to wake up tomorrow and we're going to have to go through this whole thing again. And so I really wasn't panicked. I wasn't anything. I was just in it, I felt really calm. I felt really grounded. And so she's looking at me and she's like, yep, you're definitely in active labor. Just keep doing what you're doing. I'm going to set up the room. So she's getting all the towels out. She's then put on about three, four heaters. We live in a house with really high ceilings, so it can be quite hard to heat up sometimes. So even though we had the ducted heating on, I was kind of going through these hot, cold flushes. And one minute I was really hot, next I was feeling pretty cold. So we've got the heating on. She's now put on three extra oil heaters, and then our electricity blows. So the electricity blows, the hot water blows, everything happened at once. And I remember just being in my zone. Like I was just so in my zone, but I was so aware of what was happening around me. And that really surprised me about my birth because I thought I was going to have this really heightened spiritual experiences, and I just thought I was going to be somewhere else, and I wouldn't know I was in my living room. And I really didn't expect to feel as grounded as I was and in my body as I was, but I really feel like um that was a big teaching moment for me in my birth. That's why my birth was like that. I really needed a birth like that. So as shocked as I was, I absolutely loved how present I was. You know, I knew where Vilden was at every moment. I knew the hot water had gone. I knew the electricity was going out, and they were just kind of swiftly moving in the dark. You know, there was no fuss. There was no one was really even talking. It was pretty silent in my house, which I loved. I really wanted just quiet. I wanted it to be really peaceful. So I loved that my midwife just stayed, you know, in the corner. She watched me. If I needed her or I asked her something, she'd answer. But she was so grounded and so calm throughout that whole thing. There was never a sense of urgency or anything in her voice. She was just such a pillar. Um, and my partner was the same, such a strong force. And so, you know, I'm in the midst of this labor. I can tell what could look like a chaotic moment of no electricity, no water. It still felt kind of calm in a way. It didn't feel crazy, you know. Um, so I was laboring on the sofa, and I was there for a good hour or so because it was taking a while to fill up the pool with the water keep cutting out and doing it on pots and pans on the stove. So I was laboring on the sofa, and I remember thinking, I need to get in the water. Like I need to get in the water. I'm not going to give birth on land. I knew I wasn't going to give birth without water. That was just something. I know how my body works, and I knew I just needed to be in a body of water. So at this point, I'm starting to say, Jordan, like, how long is this taking? Like, this seems like a lifetime. Like, when is this pool going to be full? I need to get in the pool. It's like, I'm doing my best. I'm doing this as quick as I can. And then I remember thinking, I need you now. I need my anchor. And you're filling up a pool. We need an extra set of hands. Like, I need someone else on deck because I just need to hold you. So we called a really close friend and said, can you come down and just help fill the pool? Because this is just, you know, I need someone to hold on to, and Vilden's running back and forth. And so time, as it does in that portal, you know, it kind of merged and expanded at the same time. But that felt so long for the pool to be filled, me laboring on the sofa, my friend that was seemed to take ages for her to come. I thought, oh my God, what is happening? Like, am I in some sort of vortex here? Because time was just not linear at all in that moment. Um, and so the pool was finally full. I jumped in and my whole body just relaxed. It felt so good. And I thought, yeah, now I'm ready. Like now I cannot resist and I can give birth now. And I knew that when I was on the sofa, I was resisting. I could feel my body was tense. And that's why I also knew I just wouldn't be able to give birth there. I think that had I got in the water earlier, I probably would have given birth earlier. But I just knew how my body would soften and needed to soften in order to give birth. Um, so yeah, I jumped in the pool. I felt so good. Everything just relaxed. Everything slowed down internally. Um, and my mindset just shifted. I felt a shift in my in my own internal energy of just, okay, we're going to do this now. Like we're getting ready to do this. And my midwife said, why don't you put your fingers up and see how far away is he? Like what it might give you a bit of, a bit of reassurance that things are moving, things are happening. Um, and I did, and he was about an inch and a half away. And I said, okay, but that didn't really mean anything to me as well. I thought, I don't know in terms of time what that means. That could be 5 hours, that could be an hour. I didn't really know. But it did give me a bit of wind beneath my sails of like, okay, I can feel him. He's real. He's there. He's coming soon. Um, and in the pool, I remember being um, like leaning over the edge, and I was holding on to the little handle in the pool, uh, my knees together, my feet apart, and I was just swaying in the water. I remember just swaying in the water. Again, the house was completely silent. There was no, especially I had some music on, but when the electricity went out, the music went out too. So it was dead quiet. And I just, each contraction that came, I felt so uh, present for each one. I was really in it, and I went into the contraction, if that makes sense. I didn't try and run away from it. I didn't try and wish it away and wish that it would end quicker or anything like that. I just, if I imagine that like a wave and I'm a surfer, I just dove straight into that wave, and I was one with that wave. I became the wave, and that made it a lot easier to face each one. Um, in between them, I just remember just sitting there. My eyes were closed the entire birth. I had this beautiful birth altar that I never looked at once because my eyes were closed the entire time. Um, but yeah, I remember my eyes closed and just resting in between each contraction, just really softening my body and thinking, oh God, okay, I get a rest, I get a rest, and I wait for the next one. And I'd wait for the next one, and I'd roar my way through that. I'd groan, I'd use really deep tones to breathe my way through each one. And that felt good. It felt manageable. It felt like, okay, I'm doing this. Like I can do this. I'm in it and I'm doing it. And I kept reassuring myself, just being like, you're doing it. You're really doing this now. And I hit transition around 6 a.m. And I looked at my midwife and I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. How many more of these am I going to have to go through? Like, I feel like I'm doing a really good job, but I'm at my limit now. Like, I just can't. And she looked at me and she said, you know exactly how you wanted to bring this boy into the world in the most peaceful and calm environment, and you are doing it right now. That's what you're doing. And I looked at my partner to say, oh my God, I can't. And he looked at me and he said, you're doing it. You're in it now and you're doing it. And that's all I needed to hear. I just needed to hear that. It was like my midwife knew exactly what I needed to hear at each point of my labor. And when she said that, I just, again, it was another moment where I felt an internal shift of like, yeah, okay, this is it. I'm going to push this baby out. And that was the beginning of my active pushing stage. Um, and I could feel him. I could feel my son moving down the birth canal. I really, like I said, I just felt so embodied in this birth. I was really in tune with where he was, where I was, what position I needed to be in. It was just me and my body, and we were working it out like, oh, I need my foot up there. I need my leg this way. And it was all just intuitive. My midwife didn't say a single thing. She just left me in the pool to move as I needed to move. And she was incredible. That's exactly what I asked for, like minimal intervention. Unless I ask, please don't say anything. Like I just want to be in my bubble. and I really was. I felt that. And so yes, it was such a bizarre, a beautiful feeling just to feel him moving down the birth canal and feel him doing his part too, you know? Like I think we always obviously talk about the woman giving birth, but the baby's doing it too. And so to be in communication with him now on a more physical level was really different because I'd just been so used to connecting with him spiritually and connecting with him in higher realms that now it was like, oh, I need to connect down here. Like we're connecting in this realm now. We're no longer connecting up there. And so I felt him move. I felt him shift down. I remember just holding on to my partner's hands. Like he was just my anchor in those really strong moments. He was so calm. He didn't look shaken or anything. He was just the grounding force that I needed. Um, and in that moment, you know, my friend came in, she finally got there. I think she fell asleep. So she got the call, then she fell asleep and she woke up and I was active pushing as she came in the door. So she did come at a good moment. She came as another grounding force in the room. Um, and but I remember thinking, oh gosh, I don't even have energy to say hello. I don't have, you know, there's no room for niceties. There's no room to be polite or anything like that. I was just in my zone. Um, so I'm pushing. I feel him getting closer, but the active pushing lasted 53 minutes. So there was a lot of coming down and going back up and coming down and going back up. And I did feel halfway through that again, I was starting to get a bit like, how long, you know, like I didn't expect it to feel this long in this stage. Um, and my midwife said, you're doing really good. He's just stretching his way through. He's making sure your body's ready. And
Mm.
so that really helped too, of like, okay, he's doing his part, you know, he's doing his part. I've got to let him do his part. I focus on my part.
Yeah.
Um, and that felt really reassuring too. And another moment where I felt more connection to him in the birth portal of like, okay, I need to be communicating with him and just tuning in as to what he's doing. So a lot of pushing down, him going back up, pushing down, and then I remember my midwife saying, okay, he's getting ready. He's nearly ready to crown. Like he'll be there soon. A couple more and he'll be there. And then I remember him coming down, the crowning happening, and me saying, is this as bad as it gonna get? Like, is this it? Am I at the ring of fire as everyone talks about? Like, am I in it now? And she said, yeah, it's not gonna get more painful than this. And I thought, oh, that's fine then. I've got this. Like, this is so fine. I can do this. And again, it was just like the extra oomph that I needed. It gave me a bit more fire in my belly. It was like, okay, I've got this. I can, if this is as bad as it's gonna get, I'm all good. And his head was coming through. Um, and I remember her and my friend saying, oh my God, his hair, Sinead, he has so much hair. And it was just hearing that, it was like, oh my God, he's real. He's really here and he's real. My baby's got hair, you know, he's a little human. Um, and all these little things just gave me the strength that I needed to keep pushing and keep going. Especially, I think, you know, you get closer to the finish line and you start to lose patience and you just want it done. You know, you're getting there and you think, oh God, I just want it over now. Um, so they really did keep me motivated with those little comments. It really made a big difference. And I really I feared this ring of fire so much because of what everyone had been saying. I thought, right, that's the moment I'm prepping for the ring of fire. But it was so fine. I did it. It was so fine. It didn't like of course it burnt, but it wasn't, you know, this indescribable hideous thing. It was actually pretty manageable. My breath was my biggest guide. It guided me through every contraction, every little twinge. I just relaxed and I breathed through it. And that my breath was also my anchor within the portal. It definitely pulled me in some moments of like, just come back to the breath, keep it simple, come back to the breath. Um, and so yeah, his beautiful head came out, and my midwife said, "Oh, you can touch it. His head's come out." He said, and I thought, no, I can't. I just need to hold on to my partner. Like I actually just can't. I just need to have both hands holding on to him and just to get this done. But they both said, "Oh, his eyes, he's looking at us, he's blinking, he's beautiful, Sinead, he's beautiful." Um, and at that moment I could feel his body twisting, you know, as they do their twist. And I thought, okay, he's getting ready, this is it. His body was twisting and I could feel that happening inside of me. It's such a beautiful, amazing thing to feel, like your baby about to completely descend. It was just incredible. I loved feeling every aspect of my birth. I just loved how much I felt. It was just incredible. So I'm feeling his little body turn, and my midwife says, "One push and he'll be out. You can do it. Just one big push and he'll be out." Um, and I waited for the next contraction. There was a bit of space in between that. It felt good. It gave me a bit of a break. He was all good. He looked healthy. There was no stress to him. So I just rested. I took a minute just to be like, this is my final moment of just me like this, you know, this is it, of him being inside of me. This is my final moment. Um, and one big push, and he slipped right out, and he came out from behind me. I pulled him up, and my one wish for my birth was that in that moment of him coming out, I just wanted to take a minute just to process a bit of what I just did, and just to be in that in between realm for a bit longer, you know? He hadn't taken his first breath, but he was here, but he was still there. And it felt really magical to just have that slow moment. So I just held him underneath the water, and he's just looking at me with his big, big eyes, and he's just blinking and looking at me. And I just brought him up so slowly for that first breath, and it was beautiful. It was the most magical moment. Um, so calm, so quiet. He didn't let out a cry. He didn't make a single noise. He was just there looking around, taking everything in. It was I could just do it all over again. I love telling my story because I'm just like, oh, I just want to do that all over again. But yeah, it was just the most beautiful, beautiful moment. And I soaked it in. I really did.
I love that for you so much. And it's so common that water babies are so calm, right? They
Mm.
so often they don't make a sound and they're just that kind of quiet alert. It
So
is
alert.
magic. Yeah. Mm.
And because, you know, you're just not, I mean, I'd watched so many home birth videos, so I was used to seeing that, you know, but my friend, she's a lot older, she's in her 70s, and so she'd never seen a birth like that. She didn't experience a birth like that. So for her, it was really magical too. And she said, "Oh, is he okay? Like he's not crying." And the midwife said, "Yeah, it's really normal. Like not all babies cry."
Mm.
So I think it was a really beautiful moment for her too, to witness that birth can be different, because she hadn't seen or experienced birth in that way as well. So um, it was it was just the most incredible thing ever. I just I love it. I love birth.
Yeah. Amazing. And did you stay in the pool for the placenta as well?
We stayed in the pool for about 40 minutes, but I was actually, honestly, the contractions of the placenta were more painful than my labor. I was so uncomfortable, and I kept saying, "Oh God," like I'm trying to enjoy this beautiful moment with my son, but I'm like, God, I've got the worst cramps and I'm not feeling good. And my midwife said, "Oh, you know what? You might be better just standing up and birthing the placenta when you get out the pool." Um, and so I got up, they helped me out of the pool, and I squatted straight away, and it came straight out. And oh, that was the best feeling. I felt so good after that. I thought, oh, I feel so light again. Oh my goodness, it felt so good.
Yeah, that's it. Gravity is just, it really helps to use gravity to birth the placenta. And sometimes you can feel really unwell before you do that. It's like your body's just like, hey, I'm
Yeah,
not done. Like, just
I'm not done.
complete, right? Because the birth is not over until the
Exactly.
placenta is birthed.
Yeah. Yeah. And it didn't feel, it just, I couldn't like fully just be there and relax because I was in pain, like I just needed this thing out. And it wasn't shifting while I was in the water. So although I thought I'd birth in the water, um, it just, yeah, it was so easy just to squat and it came straight out. I didn't need to push or anything. It was very easily done. But after that, I felt like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
done. I can lay on the sofa and be in my bliss.
Totally. And it's probably why you had such strong afterbirth pains, right? It's because your placenta was probably just sitting there at the opening of your cervix, and your body's like, oh, just
Mm.
get it out. But it kind of couldn't really shift it when you were kind of
Yeah,
probably half laying in the pool.
I was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. So that's why gravity's the best. Or like toilet,
yeah,
if you're sitting on the toilet,
mm,
it just plops on out.
yeah, exactly that. Yeah, it definitely felt really good to finally release that. And then we just laid on the sofa, and that was just bliss. Like not having, I'm not in a hospital. I don't have to be moved anywhere. I don't have to rush or anything. It was just the sun was shining through the curtains, and it was the most beautiful sunny Sunday morning. It was bliss, absolute bliss.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. Amazing.
Mm.
So if you had a first time mama in front of you right now, who's about to have her first baby, and she really wants to have a natural and empowering birth experience, what advice and pearls of wisdoms would you give to her?
I would say to her that there's so much noise out there, of what we should and shouldn't do in our lives, and even more so when it comes to birth. And there's so much misinformation on home birth, and so many, horror stories of birth, that in the last few months, or just like the whole time, even before conception, just fill your brain with all the positive stories you can. Just the minute you hear someone with a horror story, just no, just don't let it enter your field. You can hold space for people. We know that not everybody has a plain sailing birth. Birth is unexpected. Birth is chaotic. It's just what it is. But I just think it's so important to protect your energy in those months and just fill your brain with as much positive stories. Just watch a billion YouTubes. That's what I did. So that there's no other option apart from you having a beautiful home birth. There's no other thing that's getting in your head of what if this, what if that. We've got to take out all the noise and just filter it through, and only keep the good stuff, and take that with us into the birth portal of all the women that birth at home, all the women that have the most incredible births. Um, it's possible, you unite in those moments, you really do.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, this is why this podcast exists, is this idea,
It's
right?
incredible.
How important it is to feed your mind and your
Yeah.
subconscious mind, especially to rewire
Mm,
the story that is just our normal modern story of birth, right? It's not
yeah.
true and doesn't have to be true for you. You need
A
that
lot of
time.
reprogramming.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of rewiring. I think that was mainly my birth prep, was that, just rewiring, reprogramming my perception of pain,
Yeah.
rewording that, rephrasing that, so that it didn't enter in my most vulnerable moments in the birth space.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, I get so many messages of women literally listening to every episode of this podcast through their birth
Oh,
preparation journeys, like their
that's a
pregnancy, right?
great
Every
idea.
day, like a new episode to just like every day just feed their minds. And it's such a
Mm,
powerful tool. Such a
yeah.
tool.
Especially when you realize when you're in the birth, it's like your mind is the main obstacle, you know, your body's going to give birth whether you like it or not. The body's going to give birth to that baby, but your mind is the thing that really can interject that and cause the resistance. So once we move that out of the way, the boring part, birth can begin.
Absolutely. And very few women will have a physical, as you say, a physical hindrance, a physical difficulty birthing.
Yeah.
It is the mind, however, that can prolong labor, that can
Mm,
stop labor, stall
mm,
labor. You know, I love you had such a strong intuition about birthing at 38 weeks, but I also think, you know, what's the hen and the egg? You were so
mm.
convinced you would as well. Like our mind again, programming our
100%.
mind, right? You know, who knows? And for women
Yeah.
potentially who go really, you know, 42, 43 weeks, yes, some babies want to be birthed that time. That's
Hmm.
true. But I think also actually many women who do, it's also because their mind, body, soul, heart, it's not aligned to a birth yet. Like I love
Yeah.
that you share that you sat at your birth altar and you were like having these
Mm,
ceremonies with yourself of like knowing that you were in
mm,
resistance, you were in
mm,
that kind of place. And I wish more
mm.
women did that early on, you know,
Yeah.
at the beginning of term or even before, sitting
Yeah.
with themselves in meditation, in inquiry, in reflection of going like, how am I feeling right now? How's my body? Am I holding tension and resistance within my body?
Mm,
You know, what are my fears? Working through these things, um,
mm.
not at 42
100%.
weeks.
Yeah, when you're
Like,
just over it,
you
by then
know,
you're just done. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Or so many
definitely.
women who choose to work and keep busy,
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
right? And not drop.
Keep going and not
Yeah.
dropping in. Yeah, I knew that the stillness was
Mm.
needed. I knew I needed to just, because when you're keeping busy, it's like there's this avoidance thing that's happening. Oh no, I'm doing this, I'm still nesting, I'm creating this. And it's like, what sign are you then giving to your baby? You're giving the baby sign you're not ready yet because you're still in go 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 mode. Baby's not coming in go go but go mode. Baby's coming in pure stillness when you're ready and you're just being. It's the essence of our feminine energy. So it was a big part of my surrendering to be like, okay, I surrender to the chaos of it. I surrender to not knowing. I surrender to trying to control because we have no control in that portal at all, as we know. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's that perceived control.
absolutely. And yeah, the surrender to the great mystery.
Mm,
And you know, allowing it to take you on a journey. And I love
yeah.
the, you know, bits where you shared about leaning into the sensation, like diving into the wave. All of this is just pearls of wisdom that
Mm,
are, you can't say them enough because it's
mm,
easy to forget them and to get into your mind and spiral in labor and birth.
mm,
To remember these words of like diving into it, you know,
mm.
allowing it to come through,
Yes.
you know, resisting it.
Merging with it,
Mhm.
yeah, definitely makes it, the visualization of that makes a really big difference when you're in it. It's easy to say it when we're not in it, right? It's easy to give the
Yes.
advice, and
Yes.
but when you're in it, it's like that's when the real work starts.
And that's where hearing it from different women in different ways over and over again
Mm,
helps, right? Because when you're in it,
definitely.
you'll have these voices, like maybe some of them
Mm,
voice now, Sinead, popping up,
yeah,
you
how
know, about
beautiful.
diving into the way,
Mm,
right? That'll pop up because that's the
yeah.
curious thing about the subconscious. It just like kind of pops up, you know, out of
Mm,
right, and just gives you messages and
yeah.
guidance and support. And you want
Mm,
that. You want it to be filled with these stories when you are in the
definitely.
thick of the
Ah,
intensity. Hmm.
100%. 100%. You need all the women's voices in your head, that's for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sinead, for coming and sharing your
Thank
birthing
you.
wisdom.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been really beautiful. I appreciate what you're doing with this. It's really important. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you love this podcast, then please consider sharing it, leave a review, or make a contribution on our Patreon page. And if you want to connect on social media, then find the podcast on Instagram as the Natural Birth Podcast. Thank you for listening.